Okay, let's take a look at the market real quick. It's Tuesday, July 11th, 2017. And I'm not going to make a big deal out of it today. Basically, I was just going to show you how the day went. I got in here on the early morning, and you know, after I watched the news and that kind of stuff in the morning, and then basically what I was doing was comparing the S&P 500 to the NASDAQ here. These are futures, and basically what I was watching here was bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, and so I was watching bar 3, and I figured this thing was already dipped down low enough as it was. Okay, and so when this thing started bouncing, I was over here on bar 3, and so this started taking off. I caught a trade right in here up to this right here. Now, as you can see right there where the arrow's at, that is resistance, and then it acted like resistance. Price acted like resistance right there. It bounced back a little bit, and then basically when it broke out, I bought again. Caught a small trade there, let it fall back down, and then I'm watching the S&P 500 over here. So this is bar 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm watching this bar over here, and I'm noticing that the thing is not, it's basically what it's doing, it's not saying that it wants to get back down here. And so I go ahead and I risk it, and I buy the thing again, and then I cop that rise right there. And then basically it's the same case. You can see this thing here. If you can see the line, you can see the line right there. All right, that's where it bottomed out. Now, what are we looking at? We're looking at the quick tail. Right? Quick tail. Right? Okay, so this is a 5-minute bar chart, candlestick chart, and basically what it means is that bears tried down here, they couldn't get anything done and keep it going. They had to get out of things, and basically this is kind of like a bull rut, right? This is where they left their mark, right, with their horns. Okay, and so if you got a solid bar like this, see this one, it's fairly solid right here. You know, with a small wick, okay, that's not much of a sign. The bar is mostly solid because, see, when you got mostly solid bars, basically what it means is that that the chart's moving fairly slow. Price is not, you know, it's not doing anything great. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll get back to that in just a sec. Now I'm watching this this thing break out. It may break out here. I'm kind of thinking that everybody kind of made a good piece of money. I think I'm going to stay out of the market. I'll tell you why. I think everybody's made a good piece of money right here. They're not going to keep on going. Now this isn't the only market that I made in, and I'll cover that. So if it breaks out over the top, that's okay. I'm leery. Actually, no, I'll show you what I would do. I'm going to go in neutral. Okay, so my suspicion, based on looking at the S&P 500 right now, is that this thing is going to break out. You can see the top here, so I'm looking for that thing to break out. I'm looking at the NASDAQ though, and we've already had a good run. Technologies are running, but the international conglomerates, major internationals in the S&P 500 are kind of laggy. And it's because of politics, you know, affecting currencies and trades and stuff like that. And that was to be expected. They're basically overbought on socialism and anti-nationalism. Okay. So, but technology is a leverage of its own. Okay, and those aren't threatened. There we go. All right, so I'll take that. Okay, so it is breaking out on the S&P 500. Actually, it's breaking out pretty well. Just shot up $2 over the resistance line. I may have to just stick with that and take that right there. Okay, and then just show you that it works. Kind of didn't expect to get into another trade here. Okay, so S&P 500 right here. Right here is the support now. Okay, so we're looking for. Stay here. And I'll get back to the lesson about this morning. All right, so I'm looking for this thing to bounce around on here and stay up there. Okay. And this is basically the swing high. So as long as activity stays above the swing high, it's a bullish day. Right here on the NASDAQ, this is the swing high. And activity is flying over the top of that. And the reason why is because those international conglomerates, they've got a different scenario with politics and currencies and that kind of thing. Governments are more of an issue for them, whereas in technologies, it's not so bad for them, simply for the fact that I'll take that. Okay, so it's not such a problem for technologies, because basically you've got to come to terms and realize that basically what money is as a function in a sociological presence of civilization, any civilization, is the same as technology. Okay, technology is our leverage now, right? And you've got to understand what leverage is, and I kind of go over that a lot in these videos. So basically, what does it mean? It means that that the way that the international corporations are dealing is that everything's based on inflation, and so it's been this kind of global race about who can inflate their money the most and devalue it the most, in order to be able to get the most international business in their country. Okay. And so they inflated so much, and when they do it, they buy the bonds, the government treasuries and so forth. They'll even invest in stocks, ETFs, some of them. I know Switzerland and Japan are guilty of that. But basically what they'll wind up doing is they'll invest in these government treasuries, bonds, boons, guilds, whatever they call them there, and that's the central banks doing it, and basically that drives down interest rates, right? So basically the higher that a bond goes means that more people are buying the bond, right? So it works like a stock or futures in that it rises, okay? But the thing, it rises in price. But the thing is, though, is that at the same time, the interest rates go down, and that's how it works on these bonds. So if bond prices go down, then interest rates go up on those bonds as an incentive to get people to buy the things, stay in the things for long term. Basically, it works like dividends. So a lot of these big corporations, they put out dividends, either monthly, quarterly, It depends on who they are. They can lift the dividend. They can drop the dividend. It depends on how well they're doing and what they're doing or what they've got to do. And basically when they do that, it keeps investors there. Now we're talking about, major league investors. We're not talking about, probably millionaire and up. Although that's not the only people in there, but I'll tell you what, if you park a pretty big size load of capital in these things, you'll continue to reap the dividends, and you'll also be able to count on the rudimentary buy the dip process or trade the range in those dividend stocks. Because simply for the fact there's always support in the stocks because everybody's relying on the dividends. And what do they do with the dividends? They just buy more, right? A lot of people just buy more. This is kind of a stoic, antiquity, cultural antiquity, where that's what people have been doing for a very long time. It's same mentality in the bonds. So anyway, the thing about them investing so much to central banks, them invest all around the world. They invest into these government bonds, and therefore they drive interest rates down. Now the interest rate is guaranteed at the maturity date of the bond, and basically what it means is you get all your money back plus the interest, right? So, and this is a guaranteed thing, right? No matter what, as long as you held on to the thing, that's a guaranteed deal. And so it keeps investors in them longer. That's the main idea. The thing is though is that what central banks are doing, they're just making up magic money and then they're getting our taxes, right? Huge surplus all around the world in those interest rates, guaranteed. That's their dividends, and the holders inside of those central banks, which are all secret. Nobody can know. Nobody can even go into a central bank except them. And literally, you just can't go in there. You can't audit them. You can't do anything. They are in control of the world. They are higher than your government. Every government in the world is lower than the central banks. In fact, the corporations are higher than the governments. This has been proven time and time again, right? It doesn't say it anywhere, but the proof is there, okay? So, and then the central banks are over those corporations. I'm not sure where the big banks are, somewhere in there. And then there's something called One Bank or something over the top of all the central banks, or IMF or something like that. I've seen it put a couple different ways, but I just know that in effect, central banks over corporations over governments. Because who pays the Congress? Who pays for all the parties, political parties, the elections? You understand? It comes out of those corporations, the shareholders that are into there. And plus the military complex, that has a lot to do with corporations. Now the thing is though is that all these interest rates are all down because inflation has racked them all that way. So you've got Europe with negative interest rates. You've got Japan with negative interest rates. You've got China, their interest rates coming down. Chinese kind of confusing to me, but I just went over an article. It was from a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where China just dumped a whole bunch more debt into the economy. Basically, they just made a bunch more stimulus, and that inflates their money. Now, did that affect their interest rates or not? I'm not really sure. I didn't go over all the details. I just saw the headline again. Now, anyway, the thing is, though, is all that information is out there to research. If that's your kind of party The thing is, though, is that all these international companies, they're all affected by this. They ride on the communist ability to keep labor prices down and then sell it to the West, right? Sell it to the Europeans and the Americans. Right? So they're completely racked with all that. They're expecting tariffs. Okay? Interest rates are at the bottom. I mean, you can't really go anywhere else. They've been riding all of this central bank stimulus for the past 8 years. So it's kind of like they've got nowhere to go. But the thing is, though, is technologies do have somewhere to go because they're technologies. They are their own. Basically, they're their own money. They're their own central banks. They're the future, where the rest are just kind of stalwarts, right? I mean, they're just into conglomeratism. They're not really growing anymore. They're just adding more companies. Now, they do grow a little bit here and there, but it's kind of hard to grow once you're already gigantic. Basically, you've got to acquire more companies in order to grow and use their growth for your growth, which I don't agree with. I don't think there should be any such thing as conglomeratism, and I think that a corporation should have a limit of 20 years, a charter of 20 years, and then every 20 years it's got to come up for decision about whether or not it's actually a useful business for the nation. Because corporate businesses are basically government government immune entities. I think of them as castles. The thing is, though, is that okay, if you understand how you would be in the government, right? You can get away with, quite a bit, right? Legally, right? You're able to do certain things that not everybody else can do. Well, that's what corporations have got. They've got protections like that they can do things that not everybody else can get away with. Now, in some cases, when it's legitimate, it's actually a good thing because it gets more done for the nation. Okay? But these protections are abused. These legal protections are abused, right? And so then a company that has outlived its usefulness, right? Because innovation has just gone on, right? I mean, there's more companies in competition. The technology has advanced, et cetera, et cetera. The management just wasn't, genuine leadership that should have been in there. So they've failed on several fronts or one of the fronts in some way, and they're just not as useful as they were in the beginning when the nation needed whatever it was that they were providing. Okay? But instead of just fading away back into regular legal status like the rest of us, they get this legal protection, and then they get the ability to buy other companies. So then what you have are these conglomerate regimes. That's what they are, conglomerate regimes, and the only thing that they serve is conglomeration. Now, in all the things that people know about that are good for them or even bad for them, they've never heard of any such business, the business of conglomeration. What is that? It's nothing. Now, I know a saying, I forget who says it though. Any business that is in the business of no service at all is no business at all, right? And so this conglomeration stuff is no service at all, but they're reaping these enormous rewards. They have these long-term old boy regimes that just grow and grow. They get political in nature, okay? and the way that the board looks right now, it's like there's like 6 conglomerate corporations that control practically the whole board that matters. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the same way in the banks. There's 5 big banks. They control it all. And, that stuff's got to be cut down somehow. But if you're the government and you're getting paid, I mean, you're getting booked by these people, so you're not cutting anything down. They're making you. Right? And then whatever you do legally is making them, right? And so you become an oligarchy, a corporate government oligarchy. Okay? And then you get the parties to become oligarchies instead of competition. You get the corporations to become oligarchies instead of competitive, and then you get it all the way around, so it becomes basically what you've got in a communist nation, where you've got, or a socialist nation, where you've got everything nationalized, okay, nationalized or federalized or whatever. It basically what it means, not federalized, nationalized. Basically what it means is that all businesses are underneath the government, but in fact, who makes the money? Who actually manages the power? I mean, a government's just a suit of lawyers, right? Basically, right? Except for the military and the police. So, who actually has more power? The ones with the military and the police, or the ones that make all the money? It's kind of 50-50, in fact, right? I mean, if you're in the government and you're like a politician or minister of some kind or whatever, you have to recognize your generals as something, right? I mean, you can't just say that they're like nothing, because you don't exist without them. And it is the same way with these conglomerate CEOs. Now, in communist nation, it's not the same thing, because it's just all out in the open. Everything is the government, and you don't have a say about it. But here, it's got to stay underneath the reps. And so it doesn't come out that way here. Whereas you can just be open about it in Venezuela, right? You don't like it, then you die, or you go to jail, or you get everything confiscated, and that kind of thing, right? Yeah, there is no fair competition. It's all us, and you're not in. Right? And so they have problems where they're eating their pets. They're killing each other every day for food or out of anger. Drug lords are ruling the neighborhoods. That's warlords, right? Ancient warlords. Everybody knows their history. World history. You know how it's been for thousands of years. It's just the same thing. It repeats over and over, right? And and then what do? They take away your guns. You can't have guns. So now you're governed by these barons. And they're shoguns, the government's shoguns, and then where's the money though? Right? I mean, the whole point of what they're doing up there in these government conglomerations with the corporations and the military and all that, all underneath one house, right? Monopoly. Okay, no competition, right? What does the government want to do? Control everything. That's all they're into. They don't want to be threatened by foreigners. They don't even want to be threatened by national citizens. They just want whatever, everything, and then some. But the thing is, though, they burnt the shriek. You know what I mean? They burnt the golden goose, right? They burnt the golden goose alive, because what's going to happen as a result? We've proved what happens as a result when we made America. Okay, now we're still suffering from Marxism, right? Which is European elitism that followed us here. We're suffering from that culturally, economically, politically, militarily. That's right. But we suffered from basically the same kinds of gooners in Europe right? And still we came out quite on top out there in Europe. And so it was just a consecutive staircase up to here. Okay. And now we're getting bigger. We're getting even bigger with the internet. And you'll see, we're on the cusp of something here. I won't get into that now. But the thing is, though, is oh, okay. I was getting to the part. Socialism is basically where you get your favorite corporations in on the game, and it's not really decided by the government. The government's just puppets for the corporations and the central banksters. Okay, and then they're elitist leagues of international consulships, and that's your CFR, your UN, your Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, stuff like that. And basically they're the ones that control the political stuff, right? Skull and Bones is in on that. They get them, they recruit them from the time they're in college. You know, there's a lot of different ways and things that they do. And basically, the way that central banks work for all of these, this central bank empire, all these entities, all these elitists, is that they make the money. So they decide who's going to swim and who's going to drown. Okay, and they decide when. Okay, if there's a war, they decide who wins because they're going to give the winner the most money when they lend out the money. That's the racket. That's what the whole, all the wars from 1700 till now, American, European, Russian, Chinese, so on and so forth, right? It all started with that big Great Britain explosion, the empire explosion around the world. Same with Spain, same with France. And although I'm not very up on the Spanish Empire or the French Empire, I am up on the British Empire. And basically they had the secret weapon, central banks, infinite money, right? They mastered this thing. And London was working with Frankfurt, which was the Hesse monarchy, right? Hessians. Okay? So in the War of 1812 in America, Congress was trying to get, these European elitists were trying to get Congress to get the charter for the central bank through. The president was vetoing it. And so British just started a war out of nowhere from out of Canada. They were fighting with, they were not fighting against, but alongside the tribes, so they paid the tribes up. They also brought in the Hessians. Okay? I believe that the Hessians were fighting against the U.S. in the Revolutionary War as well. Now, Hesse is kind of basically an area of Prussia. And Prussia is kind of a big smorgasbord empire that included a lot of Germany. But later, Prussia broke apart, and Germany formed out of places like Bavaria, Hesse, or Hessen, I think it's called now. And I forget the other areas in Germany. But basically, the reason why you've got so many English people in Eastern America and then so many Germans in Midwestern America is because of this central bank fiasco where the two were in collusion in England and around Germany. So everybody was fleeing all of that, and then it became kind of prosperous, so then that attracted even more, which is what they were afraid of. Right? They were deadly afraid over there in Europe, the elitists, not the people, the human beings. the monarchies, the rest of the European elitists, which come with intellectuals and you name it, they were afraid that America basically would have debt-free money, and then that America would be this coast-to-coast empire. And with the Constitution, the way it was built, right, it was totally decentralized, which means extreme power. The last time they had an extreme power like that it was decentralized, it was the Republic of Rome. Okay, so they were flat out worried, and they had to do anything they could do to get control of the money here and be the makers of the money so they could slow us down. Otherwise, they were going to be out of fashion. They weren't going to be anything. And in fact, they aren't anything. Not like they were, right? There's no more kingies and stuff like that. Well, there are, but they just act. They're still rich. Now they're called elitists, right? Globalist elitists. They work with the central banks. You know who they are. I mean, there's no mistaking them. And when you smell them here, you know them right away. Now, the thing is, though, is that in the wars, they decide who's going to win, who's going to lose. It's the same in Hollywood. In fact, I've heard it many, many times that in Hollywood and in the music industry, that if you want to succeed in these industries, you basically have to like sell your soul to their system. And basically what they make you do is you go through the ceremonies, like some satanic ceremonies or something. You've got to go through the stuff, otherwise they don't trust you. Okay. And they always want you to do some kind of character act that you would never do, which is usually LGBT kind of characters. And they just want to basically pound you down so that you're on the hook. They want to get some kind of blackmail on you and that kind of stuff. But if you go through with it, then you're under their control when they want it. And also, they allow you to succeed, right? But if you don't go through it, then they're not going to allow you to succeed. They basically, all of them shut the door on you. It's kind of an oligarchy. And they're vicious. Oh, they're vicious. I won't even get into it. But the thing is, though, is that it works on them, it works on corporations, it works on politicians, political parties, elections, and so on and so forth. Now, the internet is countering all of this, right? Because before you had the radio, the newspapers, the TVs, and that was basically a two-dimensional kind of information relay system. But now you've got the internet, so if you hear anything, right, you can go reference whatever, whoever, whenever on the internet, lightning fast. And the saying now is, the more important they are, the thinner the ice they're standing on, right? So that the higher they rise and the more in front of more and more eyes, the more fragile the ice, right, that they're walking on, because the internet can see right behind them. Before, they had control of what's behind them. They could hide, they could cover up, okay, but now they can't. And we can even dig up the past, like the Rothschilds, the Frankfurt Institute, the Londoners, the Central Bank of England, the Irish genocides, the situation with Nazi Germany and the Polish genocides and the Jewish genocides and the slavery, the Russian genocides and the Russian slavery, same in China, Cambodia. We can pull up everything on the Islamos from 1400 years ago, right? So we can see everything now. It's just omnivision. And this is so lethal. You know, what they try to do is they try to weaken nations or anything that they can first before they conquer it. And then they try to make their own stronger. Okay? Whoever's going to play against us, right? They'll keep them funded and scared. You know, because if you turn on them, then they'll get you. Right? But it's called Fabian warfare. They weaken you first, then they conquer you, right? So they used Fabian warfare in Russia. Right? They got in, they started the narrative that capitalism is bad, businesses is bad. Then they brought in the people into like the news places, the government, out on the street. There was a whole Trotsky training division out of New York City. They were doing things in New York City to train for this. Woodrow Wilson, they got him in to be president. He went ahead and made the central bank permanent. Went ahead and made the income tax permanent to pay them. Now they were set free. I mean, they conquered the U.S. That was the conquering of the U.S. Now, that's a lot of money here. It's a lot of like horsepower behind that empire. That's the central bank empire, right? Which has been fighting the world, taking it over since 1694, around that time. The Great Britain, right? The saying was that the sun never sets on Great Britain because they were all around the world, right? They were taking over the world. Why? How? Central bank. They weaponized that money. But then, basically, they realized that it's a lot easier just to be central bank empire, right? Just control everybody's money and then control it in the shadow, kind of like shadow governments, basically, with the puppet strings and all of that. Picking and choosing winners. That's what it's all about. Starting wars, especially civil wars, like weakening the narrative of the nation, getting it to fight itself, getting it to kill itself, to enslave itself. And then they're weak, right? Now they're no good, corrupt, untrustworthy. Nobody trusts each other. They're all snitching on each other and everything, right? So they can't be successful civilization. Therefore, they're going to have to borrow from the central banks. There's no other way. And so now they're in their midst, right? So who's a prime example of who's going to fall into that? Saudi Arabia, Iran, right? Because the value of oil is falling apart, and the way they've got their governments in these nations is bad. These are really bad regimes of usurpation. So they aren't going to have the consumer economies, right? And now they aren't molested by Marxism, right? That's what Europe and America are known for, okay? Kind of like California, right? Europe and America kind of has a reputation like California, right? All molested up by Marxists. Well, it's true. Central banks got in here. They got control. They got control of the narrative. But Muslims, they don't become Marxist. That's the thing. But they will take a central bank. That is the other thing. And so they do. They've got a central bank in Iran. They've got a central bank in Saudi Arabia. Okay? And the oil's going to be crashing. So no more good times for Muslims. So what are they going to have to do in order to keep the party going? They just had this big boom. They were special. They were regal. Oh, wouldn't it be a shame if they all just became some poor gypsies again? With weird hats and trash bag heads? Wouldn't it be a shame? Well, I think they got their shim right in the alley. It's called a central bank. Now, I don't wish this on my allies. But you know, they've murdered something like 900 million people and enslaved quite a lot of people, I'll tell you. That's Muslims. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that their customers are all bad, but you know, when they're out there operating, they're the damn pirates. So here's the central bank. Now they got to compete. Now it's two nemesis empires, right? Evil against evil, totalitarian against totalitarian. One thing about Muslims is they're resistant to Marxism. They won't fall for Marxism. Right? They're very rigid. Okay. Marxists, though, they have their central banks in there, and they're about to fall right in the pan. So I'm watching out for that. Remember, central banks, they decide who wins, who loses, when, and why. And you've got to do a really good job or they'll really get you. You know something else I've heard? Russia ain't communist anymore. Well, that was news to me. I was suspecting that, but okay. I think they are still kleptocratic, meaning that they govern by theft. I think that they're still fairly corrupt, but they're nothing like the KGB Soviet days. So they changed their flag to red, white, and blue. I think that says a lot. Perhaps. Doesn't mean that we have to move in, right? It's nothing like that, but I don't know. Take it into consideration. They're standing up to the New World Order. They're standing up against ISIS, that kind of thing. They're disavowing Democrats, which are the Marxists, right? So it sounds pretty good. The thing is, though, is that you got to understand this. When the central bank cabal of Marxists, right, when they started coming out with world wars, okay, what they did was they turned our number one nemesis, London, the London monarchy, they turned that basically Britain into our allies during those world wars. Now there's a town in England that was bombed very badly by the Germans, and they say that Churchill, that honest Churchill, knew that it was going to get bombed, but he couldn't say anything because he had his spies working in there. And so if he let on that he knew, then basically his spies would all die, and then that operation had to succeed, so he had to sacrifice a town. But the thing is, though, is the way I see it is that the elitists put Churchill in there to fight as a nationalist. I think he was an honest nationalist. But as soon as the war was over, they had a socialist right in there. So it was like they jumped out of the fire, then they jumped back in it with more of their central banky Marxist, all over again. And the thing is, though, is that after having helped America, now all of a sudden they have special protection from America, right? So keep your enemies closer than your friends. You understand? Now, could that be happening with Russia? I don't know. We've got to watch these things. Right? I suppose if they act tamer, right, and they become civil, that would be great. Now, if they became a capitalistic empire, that would be fantastic. Then we could really do some business, and we could pummel these European central banker elitists. That would be fantastic. And I think that Asian notion that work is good, right? I think that would bring them closer. Once they see that that there's some good weasels in the water, I think that they might say, I kind of feel better about doing better things, right? And one of the things you got to realize is that Russians had very good intelligence services, right? Then they got the internet. They're all up on technology. So they've researched all the history. You've got to understand that they were sacked hard. Right? Central bankers paid up huge money to kill the czars, okay, which were the leaders of, I guess, the monarchy of Russia. Okay. They paid up, they funded all the Bolshevik stuff, all the Leninist stuff. They made that into a communist nation. Okay. Not only that, these central bankers had Germany attack them. Okay. Both in World War I and World War II. Okay. Not only that, so they've lost millions in those wars. They also had a civil war, right, in order to become communist. They also killed 30 million or more, I've heard upwards to 60 million, in the gulags, which were slave camps. Right? They starved out these Ukrainians out of all their food, killed over 1 million people, wouldn't even let them eat off of their farm. They had the best farms. But if they got caught eating, and then they just starved. They did something similar. England did something similar with British troops in Ireland, right around the time of the U.S. Civil War. And so it didn't really make any news because the U.S. Civil War was, the news. But basically, they occupied the nation, took control of all the land, said it was their own, and all the food on it was theirs as well. So all the Irish people starved. There was this thing, it was called the potato famine. There wasn't a famine, it was genocide. And so there's all these enormous mass graves all over Ireland because the central bankers from the British monarchy, they were having it their way. So basically they made the Jews their burgers, they made the Polish their burgers, they made the Irish their burgers, they made the Chinese their burgers, the Cambodians their burgers, the Russians their burgers, all up and down Africa, all up and down Latin America, the Americans, some Canadians. Probably Canada is probably the most protected. Canada and Australia, New Zealand. The French, they got the French as well, around the time of the Napoleonic Wars. Okay. Well, during the first 100 years of the central banker empire, they were warring all over the world. So, I mean, they were in India, they were in South Africa, they were in Australia, I know for a fact. Virgin Islands. They were all over the world. They were in Hong Kong, right? But it doesn't matter what the name was, it was all the same empire. Okay? So I'll tell you what, the British Empire dropped places like India, South Africa, Hong Kong. They dropped them, but what did they turn them over to? Now, India is still Hindu, but the thing is, though, is they turned over Hong Kong to the Chinese communists. Where did communism come from? Them. So it was they just changed names. Same thing with South Africa. It's insane. So they control the money. Okay, that's information. Money is information. Now think of a piece of gold, right? If you want to make gold your money, Okay, what does it say on the gold? It's got some information, right? That's all that matters, is the information. So technically, you could make an entire ledger on just information, right? Just the numbers. Right? And the majority of the world's trade is done in digital anyway. So it's not a gold, it's not even a paper. And the central banks, all they do is they just type some zeros. Okay. So they don't even make anything anyway. They just turn on the lights and they're in business all around the world. Right? Then they're getting all the taxes. That's the point, right? They circumvent the governments to get the taxes. That's been the original plan since the very beginning. Even before the Rothschilds. Anyway, so the competition to that is technology. Okay. So right now, the S&P 500 is mostly comprised of stalwart corporations. Okay. They're suffering the wrath of currency woes. But what I have seen is that while the S&P 500, it'll be suffering, but the NASDAQ doesn't suffer like the S&P 500, because the NASDAQ is just technology companies. They are their own central banks. You understand? They make their own leverage. You gotta understand that those banks, when they're lending them money, it's leverage. You also gotta understand that all these governments and corporations that they filter the money through, okay, it's laundering. It's just global, world-class size, scale money laundering. It's Ponzi scheme. That's what socialism is. It's just a laundering program, system, syndicate, right? In that oligarchy mess that I explained. Okay? Because if they just fabricate money out of nowhere, people are going to be skeptical, right? But if they work it out and take control of everything, and it runs through some of these enormous, sectors of human civilization around the world and from region to region, then they can launder billions and billions of dollars at a time in each place, and nobody's gonna say, because it all looks nice and regalious, official. Tell me, what is a government? Is it a building? Is it a person? Is it something you believe in? It's something you believe in. It's a cult. You're in it. We're all in it. Some more than others, right? The technology makes their own leverage. And so here's the competition. Now, when all these central banks were beginning, they did not anticipate technology. Information technology as special. What is information technology? It's computer software. It's computers. What's this song? Okay, so it's computers. It's software. It's robots, right? So how do you control all this stuff? What does it keep in track of? Oh, it's all kinds of sensors as well, like weather instruments, medical instruments, all this data, information. Because you can read chemistry with technology, and then what does it do? It translates everything into information, and then it stores the information, and then you can write algorithms to be able to use the information. Information programs the robots. Information, if you were going to have automated distribution systems, right? So semi trucks, trains, planes, whatever. It's all information. So as long as you control the script, you control the entire system, whatever system you're working on, right? What do the banks keep track of? Information. Oh, you call it dollars, but it's information. So if you have automated security forces, right, which a lot of security, military and so forth, is becoming that way, what does it keep track of? Information. It keeps track of information. You control it by information. Now you've got AI, artificial intelligence. What is that about? Information. In fact, it's the control of information with information, right? Because it does it automatedly, you know? It figures out and fixes itself. What is central banking doing? Information. What is fractional reserve banking doing? Information. It's just pulling information out of thin air. And therefore, technologies don't ever get hurt as bad as the rest of the corporations. So look at this. Let me show you. Okay, so S&P 500 on the left and NASDAQ technologies on the right. Now what was happening here, you don't really see it on the chart because the chart balances everything so it looks the same, right? It balanced. It's automatically balancing the motions here. But I can tell you this, that from right here on the NASDAQ on the right at the bottom to the high, just one contract is worth almost twice as much bucks as from the low here on the S&P 500 to the high. Okay. It's probably actually it's probably more than twice as much. Now here's the thing. While the S&P was doing this, you see this right here? It was like sputtering out up and down. You see the quick wicks, the quick tails, very consternacious, very indecisive, banging heads, bears and bulls there. They can't get it out of a rut. They can't get it to go down. They can't get it to go up. But the NASDAQ was just climbing. There was no confusion. It was just from right here I started trading and I could see that it was going to go up. I knew it was more bullish than this. If this one is slightly bullish, I knew this one was bullish. So I lost no trades on that. You know, and I kind of figured that once it got up to here, they were going to take profits. So I got out and I left it alone. But it did break out one more time. Okay, and this was actually fairly predictable right here, but I was giving my talk. Well, here's what happened for the most part. You can see that it starts trending down here. You can see that the bear leaves a claw mark right there. That is a quick wick. This one too. Very bearish indications. You also see that basically if the chart moves like this in a very predictable manner, a lot of people made a lot of money. Okay. Well, eventually that's going to stop and they're going to go home. It doesn't last forever, right? I mean, people got to go home. So basically it starts taking a break right here. And you can see that basically this one right here would have been my indicator. I would have shorted right there. And basically Oh, wait. Yeah, I suppose that would be it. Yeah, basically, you see it. Basically, it bounces right there. What did it do? It peaked over resistance right there, and then it got slammed. Erase that over, so you can see it peaked over and then it got slammed back down. That's what that quick width's about, right? And so basically, right here is where you start shorting. And if it got higher, you'd probably want to short it some more. You wouldn't want to get long after you saw that right there, right? And this was a great trade. Let's see here. $1 on this thing on the NASDAQ is it's $20 to you. So if you got a contract and it moves $1, it's $20. Now you can't get that out of stocks, right? Because if you got a stock, a share, and it moves $1, well, that's $1. Look at this thing. People are not satisfied. I know it. I know it. You know what? I was saying it first, okay? And then my best information out there on the street, on Wall Street, then they started saying it. Okay? So now it's happening. So the rest of them, they don't tell you. They don't say anything. Basically, they'll just act cool until it's on the charts. And then they got to say, yep, pretty bad. And then they'll say it's pretty bad until it starts being good again and it's on the charts. They won't tell you when they're selling. They won't tell you when they're buying. Now, there are pros. You got to figure out who's who. So you got to have your radar on in order to access who is who in that area. But this is really bad right here. This should be up here. I mean, if everything was rosy and cozy, these prices should be up here. Same on the S&P over here. Right. So we're breaking down to new lows. This was all surprising to me. I was surprised that it was lifting off because basically S&P was all short inventory. And you see what happens here? Okay, so basically NASDAQ rockets off here. Remember, this is covering far more equity value than this over here on the S&P 500. So this was far more bullish. This was hardly bullish. Look how many stair steps this has got. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look how many stair steps they've got over here. Well, is that one, I guess? From out, see, look at this. This is the opening swing high. So start counting from right there. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Over here, this is the opening swing high. You got 1, 2. So half as much, actually more like a third as much, because these steps are nothing like these steps over here. These were big breakouts. Okay. Now look at the sell-off. Look how far we are below the opening swing low, which was this. Okay. Gigantic sell-off. Look at that. Yeah, that's a mountain of volume right there. But over here on the NASDAQ, we're barely even crossing the opening swing low, right? And look, we're already back up to the opening swing low. See that? Huge difference. So the S&P 500 is just far more bearish than the NASDAQ, because NASDAQ is its own central bank, not everybody else. It's all about leverage. Basically, if you got robots and you got computers, right, then what do you got? Well, you got labor, cheap labor, and labor, right? What do you got with money? With central bank money, you've got labor, and labor, right? So it's two kinds of money. You're not a robot, right? I gotta get you some money in order for you to do anything. The robots, I just gotta get them some computer information. And they will carry on, handle. So this is in direct competition with the central banks. And you know, another thing, the internet, right, that's where you're at in this. With the blockchain technology, that's the internet 2.0. This is enormous competition with the central banks and their political schemies and their corporations, international cabals, globalism, because they're on the hook. Everybody knows what's communism. How many people died in communism? Everybody knows what Islamoism is. How many people died in that? Now, how many people did the Irish kill? How many people did the Jews kill? How many people did the Christians kill? I think the only thing that anybody's ever said about any of them is when they were in defense of themselves, right? Israel in defense of themselves, Christian Europe in defense of themselves against the Islamos, right? The Jews have fought the Muslims on multiple occasions. They've even fought the Romans. So have the Muslims. So all this stuff is coming out, right? They can't get away from it. And here's the thing. If they try to fight, which they will, I guarantee you they will, because they're animals. They're practical people with humility. If they don't know anything about humanity, all they know is that they have total power. They don't know humility. Okay? Arrogance is always an ass. Squared right for the boot. Perfect. Every time, it's just a facet of nature. You understand? Water falls down the mountains to the lowest point. Arrogance squares up to the steel-toed boot. And so what was their biggest commodity? Control of information. They can control the money information, therefore they can control every other aspect of information. Law is information. Religion is information. And I won't go into it, but yeah, they control religion. You haven't studied China if you don't know that. Banking information, military information, police information, court information, education information, news information, medical information. CDC is up to their eyeballs in scams. When things go bad, what do? They hide the data. They control the data. FDA controls information. They even get into chemistry and control the biology of everybody. the ecosystem in all the farmland. Right? With GMOs, they control the GMOs. Again, information control. What is information? It's everything you see, hear, feel, and know. That's what information is, the whole thing. So I did a big study on that, right? Very intrinsic component to civilization, I can tell you that. Especially politics and economics, okay? Absolutely is all it is in education, right? And research, it's all information. So, you know, as a contractor, when I used to go take on trees, what would I do? I'd go assess the trees. What would I be doing then? Taking in information and then configuring the concepts that I was taking in and how I was going to have to take on the job, and then I would have to deduce how much I would need in order to accomplish the job, how much time I would need, and then I would come up with a price with a profit on it. But it was just trees, right? Oh, it was information. Everything information. So all these old priestly kings with temples, pyramids, castles, golden tinfoil hats. Okay. Information. They had the monopoly on it. And if you didn't believe, you were done. But now you got technologies, you got the internet and the blockchains for sure, and so now they're in trouble. Because now it's like a molecule that you can't control. Right? It's just going everywhere. Like it clones itself, and it finds itself all around the world. It's truth. And so these elitists are all, get it away, shut it up, make it stop. Well, I think that's probably enough on that. But here, let's finish the talk on these trades. So basically, yeah, I scored 4 trades here on this. I was looking for the breakouts. Okay. I was also coordinating with the S&P 500 over here. I got out about right here because I figured that all the crowd had already made so much money here, so I figured that it would be rounding off somewhere around here, and I was right. It broke out one more time though, but I wasn't worried about that. And also, let me tell you, I didn't take this entire section. I didn't take this entire section either. Okay, basically that big shock, that when the breakout happens, that big shock, I take as much as it'll give me within a certain amount of time. When it starts talking about going the other way, that's when I get out. I'm done. I don't want any more. I don't need any more, right? And here's the thing. If you're starting out small, you've got minimal contracts or a minimal account, right? Okay, you can make a living doing that. You don't need to take the whole piece. And I'll tell you why. A lot of times what'll happen is you'll try to go for the big trade instead of just taking your piece, like, you know, $30, $50, $75, $100. Okay, depends on how fast it gives it to you. Okay, so if you get some kind of rocket shot, you know, you got 100 and something or whatever, grab it. Don't keep looking for more. Okay, it's already in your pan, man. Just go to the go put it on the go put it in the vault. You know, stash it. Don't be looking for more that day or that trade. Now here's the thing, what'll happen is you'll get up here and it'll start talking about going the other way. Well, you just had it, and then it starts talking about going the other way. You'll do one of two things. It'll start looking the other way, and you'll get out thinking that, oh well, you know, missed out this time. And then it'll go back the way that it was going in the first place. Or it'll actually just totally reverse right there, right? And it'll just constantly keep going against you. Okay, so you don't want to mess with that. If you've got it in the pan, just fold it, crease it, keep it, run. Don't stick around for that trade. Look for the next trade. You don't have to get this full move. Okay, this full move or this full move, okay, look for the next one. What are you looking for? Well, you're looking for this thing to reverse. So you start looking for reversal patterns, and you're looking for this thing to break out. Okay, so what does it normally do if it stays in a trend? It breaks out, then it comes back down, and it bounces off support. So look for support. Make sure you mark that down. And then if it's looking like it's bouncing, now how do you know it's bouncing? So look at this quick tail right here, right? So this thing didn't even make it down to support. What's that mean? It means that it's extra bullish, right? Because what do you got to do in order to get it down to support at minimum or even try lower? You got to have a lot of sellers, but there sure weren't there. There were none there. Okay, so you've got this quick tail right here. That's a lot of money, right? And then you've got a higher low right here, right? So quick tail, higher low, didn't even touch the support. You know this is bullish. So right around here, you're going to be wanting to buy in and then see if this doesn't break out. I wouldn't even contemplate getting in short at the same time like I do sometimes. Okay, because I'll explain that kind of magic later on. It's kind of it's like accounting magic or financial engineering in trading. Okay, so anyway, this thing breaks out, and then I grab a piece of this. Now I don't ride this all the way up here. I take what I can get and I split. Now if I'm a small account, I'm making a nice living. If I'm a big account, right, and I've got a lot of position on here, I've got a lot of size in my position, then I'm blinging, right? And it's the same move, okay, but I just got more exposure on the move here, okay, right? Same move, more bling, okay. So, but you've got to earn your way up to that, that size of account, so that way every time you get one to go, you don't need the full move. You just made I'm not even going to talk, but it's substantial, okay, right? Basically, when you have a bigger account, you should take much less risk because it doesn't take much for you to make a really nice living, okay? That's the thing about it. But when you've got a smaller account, you can take more risk in order to make a decent living. And the thing is that you don't have a ton of risk because you're a small account. So it just works that way. Memorize that, keep that in your mind. Okay. And then the same game here, right? So this was even worse, right? So even higher this thing pivots, okay? Wait. Quick tail right there, another quick tail. Higher low, gotta grab it. I didn't trust it because this thing had already moved so many legs up. I just didn't trust it. I didn't want to give anything back. I was already happy. That's kind of the way I feel about it. If the team has already moved, and that's what this is behind here, it's a team. If the team already moved, okay, and it's already getting into that time of day, I don't want to go with it anymore because I don't want to give anything back. I'm good. They're good. I'm good. They're probably good and they're probably going to get out. So why even stick around for them to get out and then give it back, right? So I didn't even take that chance. But there was another opportunity there. Okay. And I was talking, so I wasn't really watching the charts here. But I bet you anything, if I were watching the S&P 500, then I would have seen that there was opportunity right there. And I was talking, I didn't see this opportunity. This was an opportunity, and this is well within the time that we trade, right? So 2 hours, right? This right here at this area is 2 hours into the trading session. So that's all within the time. I would say up to 2.5 hours. Okay. which is right here. Now that's when you have all your volume. You're not going to get shocked out of everything by the algorithms, right? The liquidity's not thin enough so that basically the team is going to push the chart around for you, right? You just gotta be able to read the maestro, which is the chart. Okay, if you can read the maestro, then you can play along. Okay, they'll make it happen, but when they're not there, then volume's very thin, and that's when you get shocked out of your positions, right? You know, but there's a thing about it too. Is basically the way those algorithms work, and even the size traders that are working the afternoons, is that basically they know where you're going to get long because you're reading the chart and they're reading the chart too. So when you get long, they're going to make it go short. They really do that. Their programs are for that and everything else. So basically, when you're long and they make it go bearish, then what are you going to do? You're actually going to sell to them. They're actually buying lower. So they force you down to lose, okay, because they're short, right? They're short, they profit down. Then they got to buy to cover, and you're selling. So you sell right to them, and then they buy long, and then it starts going up, right? Because they're buying to cover, okay, and they're buying long, and then it gets to a point where you think, oh well, I better buy long now because it just reversed, okay. So then it goes long, and, you know, the price goes bullish, and you're in long. No. Okay, not that part yet. Not that part yet. So you're thinking, oh, I got to get short, right? So after you were long, you had to sell out, and then you got short because things were looking short. They know it looks short, okay? They know it looks short, so they make the thing go bullish, okay? Well, what happens when you're losing on a short trade? You buy to cover. They're long, though. They made the price go up. So what are they going to do there? When you're buying to cover, they're selling to you. And then vice versa. Okay. So whatever the chart's saying, they do the exact opposite. They're like the Terminator of bus drivers. Basically, if the Terminator says, get on the bus or stay on the bus, get out. If the Terminator says, get out of the bus, stay on, because that thing's just going to drive right into an intersection or something, okay, and kill you. So you need to stay in. Whatever's happening at that door is not safe, okay? So just figure it like that. Once the Terminators take over the charts, just stay one step ahead of them. Okay, there's only two steps, right? It's long and short, bullish and bearish. Okay, but during the actual traders session in the morning of a liquid day. Now around the holidays, it's real tough, you know. So there are days where it's not going to work out because, you know, these people do have lives other than this. But when they're controlling this thing, they're going to drive the bus like normal people. And so you know that if they lose control in the mornings, that long-term investors like hedge funds and that kind of thing, okay, they are sending a sign, right? If they're stepping in front of us in the morning, it's sending a sign that basically we're going to take prices lower or we're going to take prices higher, or it's time to reverse things and that kind of thing. So if anything acts out of the normal in our business time in the morning, okay, that's a message. We're going to take note of that, okay? And we're kind of like the elevator people, right? So it's the long-term investors. They can't help it, and they know what they're doing. They know what kind of signs they're sending, okay? And so if it says take it down, we're going to take it down the next day, the next day, the next day, until they hit the button and the chart says take it up, because you're not going to make any money. We're going to step right in front of you if you keep taking it short, okay? Well, of course, then you get the short squeeze. You rock it back up. we'll see. Does it stay up? If it stays up, then okay, they want us to, they'll have us up here. If it just starts falling again, okay, it was a short squeeze. They're still bearish. We'll take it even lower this time, right? We'll take it down even more floors until they say, you're not making any more money. Stop the elevator. Because they have the enormous programs, right? They're reading data that we don't even see, okay? They have kind of like intelligence agencies, these hedge funds. They have kind of like intelligence agencies, researching the news all the time, scanning the web. They got inside people. They got people calling up the companies, politicians. It's all over the place. They have their own networks, okay? So, but us out here, we don't have all that. We just look for what they're doing. And why? Because we're not using all that money to facilitate all of that intel information, right? We're just getting the message here on the charts. And that's one of the first things that I learned when I first started trading as a stock trader in the trading chat rooms, was that basically everybody in the trading chat rooms was like, look, they have all the information you're never going to know, okay? So if you're actually trading the earnings reports and so on and so forth, you're way behind on everything, because they already know all that stuff long before that ever comes out. So the way that you stay up to date is you read it right here where they're talking, okay? So early morning, that's us. And if they get in our way, they're saying something, okay? So just kind of figure that. And you'll learn it after a while. So that was the NASDAQ. Now, at the same time, I was watching the oil. And the oil was doing some good as well. There was a move here. Let's see, what time was it that I... It was right here, okay? So I saw this thing. Now, it didn't look anything... Here, I'll show you what it looked like. No, it didn't even look like that. It looked like that right there, okay? But it was up here. So I saw it bouncing. I saw this quick wick right there, okay? So it rejected that resistance. It was a bounce. I went ahead and shorted that. I made one there. A certain short trade right there. Okay, made out good on that. Missed out on a lot here. Right. But that's all right. And then the 60. Oh, the euro. What? I don't know. Central bank money. So is the dollar. It's all the same junk. Alright. Just get it and turn it into property, okay? That's all. That's all. I'm warning you. While they have it open, raid the shelves, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting that corruption is the ideal here, but I am saying that while it's in the markets, while there's still markets, right? Turn that crap paper into property. Do the same thing that they're doing. What are they doing? They're trying to beat you at it. This is your job as a soldier of freedom, for freedom, okay? And truth, right? So what are they trying to do? They're trying to buy everything with fake money. So what do you got to do to counter that? You got to buy as much everything as you possibly can with the same money. And it's right here. I mean, they can't get away. Perfect, okay? So here's an example. The euro futures, very liquid market. Let's see, where was I at when I was trading this? Okay, this move right here. So here's what it looked like. Okay, we were up here. It was talking about coming down here. It was breaking support, and I said, "Yep, that's the money right there." Okay, right. Why? Because we've got a lower high. Right. So what does that mean? All of these prices right here, bulls were not interested. If they basically normally at these double tops, right? This is the swing high. Okay. Swing high here on the opening. Okay. Normally there's a lot of liquidity up here. Basically what that means is that bulls down here, if they want to hold on, there's going to be some good sellers up here. And you can see them. Okay. You can see that liquidity on your dome or your heat map. Okay. It's a lot easier on the heat map. This is a jigsaw trading heat map. And basically, you see this big white bar right here, and this one up here, it's kind of choppy though. Okay, what that means is there's a lot of liquidity there. Let me show you. Okay, so what price is that? That is 1.14800. And we'll look 14800, and that is right there. Okay, 227 contracts right there. Are right there. That's a lot of contracts, right? Okay. It can be more, and basically the way that this color pattern on the heat map works is in relative perspective ratio. Basically the ratio between the lowest number of limit orders on the offer compared to the highest. Same thing down here on the bids. These are limit orders as well, and basically these color patterns are comparisons, right? And so you know where the big liquidity is. Okay, and so basically it would be something like this, or maybe a few of these in the area of the double top. Okay, be something like that. But the thing is, though, is that they didn't even hold on for anything like that, right? They entirely rejected this entire area right here because there was no investment there. They weren't going to put on these shirts, right? Their tops, and then go trotting on up the hill and make some profits, make some sales, or anything like that. No, this was a lower high, right? They turned around before they even got up there to sell into that. So that's really bearish, and it was a lot of space right there, right? You can judge how bearish or bullish that price, that market is acting, that crowd behind that chart, based on how far away they turn away from resistance, or how far away they turn away from support. Okay, so this was a big margin between where they turned away. Okay, and this thing was falling pretty fast. I mean, look, it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5-minute bars to get up there. That's 25 minutes. And then they covered all that distance in one bar, and the bar wasn't even done. So, and this big turnaround far before it got to resistance. This was very bearish. Big lower high. It was that time of day. It just was like, well, you know, I think somebody's made their money and they're going home. So this thing's going to deflate like a flat tire. So I shorted, and this thing rocketed on down to here. Okay. So that was a really good trade right there. And, you know, I don't stick around and wait forever. So. And that was it. What was that? That was probably about 6 trades. So 6 for 6. And then we get into the chat here. So I got kind of carried away on that. And now we're into that time of day where the liquidity is basically disappearing. the show is over for me. And I'll tell you what, I traded yesterday late in the day. I started about at this time, okay, which is 2.5 hours after the open, and liquidity was so bad, and I was like, well, I'll just trade it for sport. Okay, I did so bad. Oh, and I'll tell you what, the reason why I do it though, once in a while, I'll just take a hard-headed turn right into what I know I'm not supposed to do, to remind myself not only why I don't do this, but also what the feel of it is, and then also how do I handle it? Like, what's going on in the crowd? What do I gotta do in order to survive in this? So, then I've got more information that I can repeat to people and for my own benefit. And basically what it was the Terminator situation. Basically, whenever these algorithms are saying, hey, bus is about to start to go, you need to stay in, that's when you get out. That's when you short, right? So if it's looking like it's going bullish, you got to short. If you were short, okay, if you were short because it was looking bearish and then it starts to go bullish, don't buy to cover from them, okay? Because what they're doing up above your entry is they're actually shorting, okay? They're going to short it back down to where you were, okay? And vice versa. So you gotta stay in control and do the opposite of what the charts are doing. But in the morning, you just listen to what the team is doing here, right? Because what you're reading is what everybody else is reading. So when we see the comet in the sky or the falling star, that kind of thing, right? Then all the three wise men, they know where to go. You understand? That's how that works, okay? But when everybody's gone for the day, then it's up to robots, and they're just out there to scheme and scam you, okay? So you got to do the opposite of what they're doing, because they're trained to do one thing: bait and switch. That's it. Bait and switch, right? But the traders, they're trained to do one thing: read the chart and trade the chart. Okay? Two completely different gimmicks, okay? Wow. Different business, what do you call it? Business plans, right? So when you try to get a loan for a business, what do? You present a business plan, okay? Right? How does a business work? With a business process. It's got a business plan, and I'll tell you something. I think a lot of people call this a gimmick. Now, a lot of people are still confused that guns are bad because they can hurt people, but they don't know that cars kill a lot more people than guns every year. Hammers kill more people than guns. Do you know that chairs kill people? Okay. So, water kills people, right? A lot of things kill people. And guns are very low, except in wars and genocides, on those statistics. And so it's a matter of how you use your tools, how you use your chairs. Like, you fix them when they start to crack. You don't murder people with hammers, stuff like that. Or knives. Or toxic byproducts in vaccines and food and water. But so, and a lot of people say, well, these stock markets, they're all evil and corrupt. Well, there's corruption in them. Yeah, there is. There's corruption in basically most things somewhere, right? Somewhere you can find it. It's not going to be hard to, go on a hunt and look for liars and cheaters and thieves and murderers. I mean, if you're really into it, be a detective. Right? Join an intelligence agency. You're going to find it all over the place. In fact, I mean, if you're just watching the news online, you're going to find it everywhere. Right? So, but it's not 100% of the world. It's just that, it exists everywhere. And, anything that has a lot of money is going to attract more crooks. There's going to be more collusion between thieves, right? They're going to get more organized, okay? So that's why governments are always corrupted, right? But it's the government. They're our friends. No. There are our friends in government, right? Our friends are everywhere, but there's also corruption in governments as well. There's corruption in the Vatican, right? So it is places you just got to keep control of it if you can. And the only way you're going to get control of corruption that has a lot of money, like the corruption in the government and on Wall Street and the banks and the Vatican, like they've got, is if you've got money too. Because if you don't have wealth, you have no power. You don't have time to fight it. Right? So you're out of the game, and that's why they try to control capitalism. They don't want you having money, because then you're competition. Do you know what the globalists said about competition? It's a sin. Okay? And in my research on civilizations, I know them very well, and I know exactly what they meant by that. Right? They want to control the ideological narrative, right? So they know that sin refers to an ideological narrative. You know the one, right? Well, they want to control that. They don't want, the maker of the universe to be their ideologue of influence. They want to be the controllers, right? And they want to make sure that nobody can compete with them. So they don't want you having any money. It's a sin. You're the cattle. No good. Cell blobs. That's what you are, Did you ever take a wire, connect it to a lemon, and then light up a little bitty light bulb, right? Well, that's basically all you are to them, okay? Now, how trashy is that? How grotesque is that? That's obscene. How can they survive as an empire? Because they can make up money and they can kill you if you don't believe in them. That's how. So, it's a wonder they survive, right? Yeah. But, I'll tell you, the folks in the farmhouse, they're killing and eating them, and then they're smiling and having a good time, just like the elitists. Just like them. They can murder 1 million people and enslave 500,000, take all their properties and assets and all their work, lie to them, cheat them, and then they're having a merry old time in the farmhouse, animal farm. See that right there? It's bouncing off of resistance. You got 3 quick wicks right there. With the bottom being down here, right? A gigantic quick tail right there. I would say there's some serious rejection down here. But you got to remember, that was a lot of profits right there. So, as soon as somebody starts buying here, all the bears are going to start to cover. because they're going to capture those profits. So when they start to cover, buyers start to buy, right? And they buy even more because they're covering and buyers are buying, so they buy even more, right? So then you get this big quick tail right here. Now this right here appears to me like a handle on this cup. It's just a really narrow bottom cup. This is also a very narrow handle. So now is this going to break out though, like a normal cup and handle? Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, I think we've learned enough today, and I will, yeah, I forgot what I was trying to explain there, but no problem. You know, I have these talks a lot. I cover stuff, and I'm sure you'll figure stuff out. If not, be around for more. Good luck.